Okay, good afternoon and welcome to council. Monday, August 24th, 2020. Called the meeting to order at 12 p.m. We are not doing a Shaw TV, but we're doing a Facebook Live. So welcome to everybody out there who's watching. Remind everybody to turn off their mobile devices, put them on silent. Thank you. And any additions or deletions to the agenda today? Hearing none. I do have a motion here that council hereby accepts the agenda for Monday, August 24th, 2020 as regular meeting of council as circulated amended. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valens. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? Hearing none. I do have a motion here that council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council were held on Monday, July 20th, 2020. And the closed meeting of council were held on August 11th, 2020 as circulated amended. Moved by Councilor Valens, second by Councilor Bushi. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Report to councils, and the first is a report to the appointments of boards that we have here for the Library Board. I have a motion that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation of appointment to committees and boards, and further that the appointments be approved and presented with the appointments expiring on November the 14th, 2022. Need a mover and a second to put that on the floor. Councilor Debuchy, Councilor Valens. Okay, the appointments are as Marathon Public Library Board. As you know, we had reinstated the board after the COVID. We had a resignation of our complete board, so we had to go out and do a search, and council did an interview process, and out of that we selected 3 individuals, as well as 2 members of council. Myself and Councilor Debuchy will sit on as council's reps. We have Amy Mackey, David Giuliano, and Allison Golden, who will be appointed to the library board, and their term will expire on the 14th of November 2022. So we look forward to working with all 3 of those newly appointed board members. Any questions? Good, yeah, thank you very much. And all 3 bring previous library board experience to the board, so it's great, and I'm looking forward. I've never had any experience. Councilor Debuchy has on the board, so we will look forward to meeting in September and getting the board orientation going and back up and running. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. So up next, I'll have a quick AMO verbal update in regards to the AMO conference. As you know, this year was no in-person meeting, and none of us have met anywhere since early March. With AMO was the same thing, so they decided back in March to go with a virtual conference. We all thought it was going to be very hard and cumbersome to look at it and run a virtual conference, but actually it worked out very well. It was a very professionally done conference. I met on Saturday with the board virtually all day. We had a great session about setting up. Met again on Sunday. We had delegations from NOMA, and then of course all the ministerial delegations as we would normally do in person. No different. It just, instead of sitting in the hallway, we were sitting either in town hall or in our living room or our offices at home. And it worked very well. Both NOMA and the town of Marathon, I felt their conferences were great. I'll go quickly over NOMA. NOMA had the opportunity to meet with ministerial staff and ministers, so we had 6 ministers on. And unique, again, because each minister was either at their cottage or in their home, their living room, and it was very but everybody was tuned in. There was no glitches in regards to the technology. NOMA met on some COVID relief. Obviously, is the key message, I think, from this whole conference was COVID, and the amount of money that the government's putting back in to keep the stimulus of the economy going. Funding, the Premier did announce that the funding and the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund would continue to be the same level it is in 2020 for 2021, so that guarantee was come from the Premier. So with our treasurer here, we don't have to at least worry about that for one more year. NOMA will continue to fight that. We've always argued that we need that $500 million fund to continue on and assist us. And as you know, we're at $1.8, $1.9 million in our budget annually. If we have a reduction at funding, that comes directly back to our ratepayers. So that was very important. Other issues was the heads and beds. Heads and beds are simply the amount of money we receive from schools and hospitals and taxation. We want to continue to get that on the forefront and get that resolved. And for us, the other one, the big one, was taxation for conservation authorities. We don't see it here so much, but NOMA represents many municipalities in the Northwest. there are areas that there's huge tracts of land being donated or considered conservation authorities, which is great, but now they don't pay taxes in that municipality. So any opportunity for gaining any taxes off many hectares of land is gone. And a lot of these lands are actually very valuable developmental lands. So these are what these municipalities are arguing. So we brought that to their attention. As far as Marathon met on 3 different issues with the ministers, and we met, of course, on the assessment, the environmental assessment for Generation Mining. That's moving forward very quickly. Parliamentary Assistant Dave Smith assured us that he would work on that, and the government is reflecting, and we did hear from Premier Ford as well as Minister Rickford, that there should be no way that any process through an environmental assessment should take 7 years. So we heard that already with the Hard Gold project. We were assured by Parliamentary Assistant Smith that we would also have the process go forward smoothly, and we assured Generation that if there was any hiccups, we would again contact the government officials that needed to be contacted to assist them. We talked a bit about the Marathon Senior Supportive Housing Complex. We had some issues with funding at the beginning. Of course, we didn't have full capacity in our facility, ran a bit of deficit, so we brought that to their attention and tried to resolve that deficit position from the beginning of the project. Now that we're full, we should be fine with no future deficits, but there was a bit of a deficit for the year and a half, and we wanted to have some sort of assistance, so they're going to look into that as well and see how that goes. And of course, our biggest frustration was the fact that we talked to Stephen Crawford, Parliamentary Assistant for the Minister of Infrastructure, no funding for the Active Living Center. And of course, we knew what the answer was going to be, but it was frustrating because we don't have an actual ministerial rep. Of course, Minister Rickford is in Kenora, but we don't have direct contact, and it makes a difference sometimes. But Parliamentary Assistant Crawford said it was oversubscribed by billions of dollars, and we kind of knew that. But so it was getting your project in the forefront. We are shovel ready. Our project is one should have been in the queue, but of course we didn't accept that. So we asked for a debriefing of our process, and Daryl will work with the Parliamentary Assistant as well as other ministerial staff in getting an overview of where we missed the target. But I don't think our staff did anything wrong. I think Daryl did an awesome job. We presented a great case. The municipality came together with our First Nations neighbors. The reality is it was just oversubscribed. That's what the message we got back. So I think it was a great conference. We did a wrap-up on Wednesday from NOMA and as well as the AMO board, newly elected positions. I'm now on the board again for 2 more years as your Northwestern Ontario rep. So going forward, we'll continue to have virtual meetings until things lighten up with COVID. But they were very pleased, and our new incoming president, Graydon Smith, out of Bracebridge, Ontario, was very pleased on the whole process as well. And Jamie McGarvey out of Parry Sound was also retired after a 2-year term, and everybody thanked Jamie, of course, and the great job he did. And it's a role, because when you're the president of AMO, you're in Toronto all the time with the minister, which is a great opportunity for your municipality as well as your region, but you spend a lot of time in Toronto with government officials. So for us, it's a role that you'd have to have somebody who's willing to be spending a lot of time traveling and in Toronto to be on the AMO executive as far as the president or whatever. So overall, we went really well in regards to the conference. So hats off to all the people who participated and ran the virtual conference. I don't know if Daryl, you wanted to add anything to that, if I missed anything from our presentations.
No, I think you've covered it well, Your Worship. I think, one of the frustrating things with respect to the Active Living Center and that program, and the mayor is certainly right, it was completely oversubscribed. What the PA did say was 9 out of 10 projects did not get funded. So, I guess as a municipality, we spent over $300,000 developing our shovel-ready project. Where does that leave us? So he did indicate that there's going to be some additional funding programs that will be announced over the winter months. So certainly we'll circle back and we'll be ready to look at those when they do open up. But it doesn't sound like they were ready for the amount of recreation applications that they did get. But I think it could have been anticipated because it's the first time in probably 15 to 20 years that there was a recreation stream. So we'll regroup and we'll relook at it as part of our strategic planning with council in the fall.
Any questions? Councilor Lake?
Just one for the CAO. And I guess it comes to that strategic planning question. Is you're right, a lot of time, a lot of money. It was, I thought, a really forward-thinking project. You had partnerships from our local First Nations. Where can we go from here? I just think what you'd hate to see is it just get put on a shelf and not go anywhere. Like, I know when it came to senior sort of housing, you and Adam got together and kind of had this really creative public-private governmental partnership. Do those kinds of things, I know the budget is 3 times as much or 4 times as much. Is there, if you look in your crystal ball, is there a way that we can get this done, or is it just waiting for the next funding model?
Yeah, I think that's really the work administratively that we have to complete going forward, is to look at, creatively, what are our financing options. Certainly, we discussed with the ministry the ability to utilize Infrastructure Ontario in some form or fashion. And maybe even in a 0% loan capacity as opposed to interest bearing. So we'll look at that in the fall. As you're going to see in an update in about 2 minutes, reinvesting money back in the current facility doesn't make a lot of sense. What we're seeing is that building, it's reached its useful life, and we're investing good dollars in a building ultimately that, is past its prime. So that's really going to be our work when we look at the Active Living Center. It is the project that, as designed, that we want for Marathon. We've done the public consultation, as well as the consultation with our First Nation partners. Now it's just a matter of, from a financing perspective, how do we get it done in the next 5 years, I would say.
Councillor Velez?
So I kind of have a 2-part question. I'm going to try and make it as precise as I can. Have they announced the projects that were successful in receiving funding? And if so, was there any type of criteria that made them stand apart? And was there anything in our region that was approved?
So they haven't publicly announced any projects. So the way the process works is the province nominates the projects at the provincial level, and now those projects go to the federal level for final review and approval. So if you've made it out of the first round, there are some in Northwestern Ontario that will be announced that have gone to the federal level. Then you get reviewed at the provincial level, you get reviewed at the federal level. I think the feedback we've gotten, and I kind of somewhat expected this, is ours was a large ask. We asked for $9 million. So what I think you're likely going to see out of this process, because of the number of applications, there's probably going to be a threshold that was established where all projects under $2 million got funded, so that they could fund a lot more projects as opposed to a lot less. I think that's what we're likely to see.
And then I have another question, and this can totally be kind of irrelevant, but is there certain components that we had for the Active Living Center that we could kind of bring into maybe the new golf club? Would we want to do that, and what does that all kind of look like?
Anything's possible, I guess, is the simple answer. The Active Living Center, really, it wasn't something we designed that is ultimately extravagant. Yeah, it's got a $35 million price tag, but that's the cost to build in Northwestern Ontario. Unfortunately, we've learned that through supportive housing that we're looking at $350 a square foot to build a new building. So the only space I could see us looking at for the golf course, and then I don't know if administration would recommend it, just because of access to it, would be really a 5,000 square foot space we had for just general recreation, which makes more sense to be at the Active Living Center. So, what we're going to see with the golf course, right, is we are going to get a settlement, based on building valuation, and it is likely that council is going to have to look at topping that up, as we build the new building, because it's not, the replacement cost we're going to get is based on the current building, not a future build, right? So we're still going to be looking at the, needing to levy money to do the clubhouse as well.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
As frustrating as it is, we will continue to focus on moving forward with the Active Living Center and maybe making more opportunities to work with our First Nations neighbors to go look at federal and provincial ministries together, because I think with the letter of support was great, but they also need recreational activities and facilities, and being close to our community with Pic Mobert and Beattigon Nishnawbe, it's where we need to have that partnership come and focus on how do we get the government to the table. But obviously with COVID, not only provincially and federally, I think we're provincial is over $30 billion deficit just with COVID, and the federal is in the 30s and 40s billion dollars, let alone any facility building or infrastructure. But they did say, at all levels of government said, they want to focus on economic growth and opportunities within the communities for the next release. So that we get from the ministerial level, that there are going to be rollouts over the next month or two in regards how do we stimulate the economy, but not just giving money away by having people go to work and all those things, right? So we'll continue to focus on that and see where we're at. Thanks for that report, John. All right, update on the Peninsula Golf Course Clubhouse Fire and Marathon Arena condenser. Mr. Skorczynski.
So thanks, your worship. So I sent council earlier this morning, just a briefing note on the status of obviously, these two facilities. So, starting with the arena. So the arena condenser suffered a mechanical failure upon pre-startup inspection. It was approximately 2.5 weeks ago. The unit was deemed to be inoperable and required replacement. This is a unit that operates with ammonia, which is an extremely dangerous gas. Therefore, it wasn't something that could just be fixed. It's really a unit that needed to be replaced. So a new unit has been ordered, and it's expected to arrive in Marathon around September the 15th. We haven't finalized the date as yet because the condenser is being constructed right now. Once we have that, we'll firm that date up. Specialized labor to install the unit has been booked with Simcoe, and the mechanics will arrive on site when the condenser does. It is expected this installation will take 2 to 3 days. Once installation is complete, it will take town staff approximately 5 to 7 days to install ice. Therefore, at this time, we are targeting an ice season start for the week of September 21st.
Any questions? Here, Councillor Lake?
Again, this is back to your point that you were just making. We're gonna expect to see more and more of these breakdowns at both the pool and the arena moving forward if we don't find a new active living center, right? Like, what's the, I mean, I guess what I would ask is, I guess anything's possible with patching money, but if you had to lifespan out the arena and the pool, what's the countdown that we need to, where it just gets untenable?
Yeah, well, I think, realistically, we have to make, one of two decisions within the next 5 years. And that is, we're gonna build a new active living center, based on the financial plan that's been developed. Or two, we're gonna decide not to build the active living center and have to look at putting probably $10 to $15 million, if not more, into that building to keep it serviceable over its lifespan. One of the things I can tell you that's been very challenging in the last 2 weeks, when we look at the planning of reopening those facilities in the current pandemic situation, is spacing and traffic flow of people in the building. That 1970s build is just not designed to deal with situations that we're seeing in 2020. And the likelihood of us dealing with these situations going forward for, the next 5 to 10 years is highly realistic. So, I think administratively, as long as it doesn't present an undue financial burden on the municipality, the new building is what we require in Marathon.
Councillor DeBusschere? You wanna put your microphone on, please? I can't reach, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I need Mitchell to turn on the mic. Obviously, this is gonna be one of our priorities in our new strategic plan moving forward. However, the repairs, was it the financial implications and where are we moving money around within our budget to basically how much is it gonna cost and how are we gonna fund this project?
So this is the condenser you're referring to?
Yes.
Councillor? So $110,000 cost. We'll be taking it out of reserves. We do have a capital reserve established for these types of things, but it doesn't take long for these types of things to deplete that reserve when you're talking about six-figure repairs on a regular basis. So, I would say, this is gonna be a large topic of discussion for us in the fall.
Okay, that's it? Okay, thank you for that update.
So on to the clubhouse fire. So Peninsula Golf Course reopened to the public on August 21st. That was last Friday, and I do want to thank our staff who put in a tremendous amount of effort, as well as our senior management team, to get this facility up and operational in approximately 8 days since the clubhouse burned to the ground. With temporary facilities in place after the clubhouse fire on August the 10th, we were able to source replacement golf carts that are being procured and are on site for rental. We were fortunate to find these in Thunder Bay, 10 carts that are in extremely good shape. If you've been to the course, you'll see the setup. They're electric, which is a big improvement over the gas carts. Power at the course has been restored and upgraded. You'll see that we now have a power shed at the golf course. Previously, all the power ran into the clubhouse and then was backfed to other areas of the course, such as irrigation. There is some browning on the fairways. That's because we haven't had water for approximately 9 to 10 days. But we'll be back on our plan this week. So the power has been upgraded. I do want to thank Tony Price and Dave Terrio, who spent a tremendous amount of time to get us up and operational, and we're highly committed to doing that for us. Administration is now in the process of finalizing the insurance claim, which includes building valuation and settlement, contents loss settlement, and business interruption settlement. So loss of revenue and other costs we've incurred to get back up to operational status for the business. Administration expects that the claim should be settled by the end of September. Once this is complete, the process to be utilized to construct the new clubhouse in 2021 can be developed, and that process initiated in the fall.
Any questions on that one? Councillor Valens?
Not a question, just a comment to say a big kudos and a big congratulations to administration, senior admin, and their staff for all the restrictions and roadblocks put together due to COVID to start off and get the golf course up and operational with COVID, and then to now face this roadblock to get it up, back and going again so quickly for last Friday. Big kudos to you guys, and I think the residents really appreciate it for sure, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Debuchy? Mike, please?
Obviously, I've been out there and viewed the facilities. How are we expecting the four-season, I guess, the cross-country ski club being able to utilize it? Are we going to insulate the bottom, or are we, is it the finals, is it final as is, or are we gonna do, I guess, winterization during the shoulder season?
Yeah, so certainly the Cross Country Ski Club has reached out to the municipality, and really at this time, it's a bit early to be able to say what that looks like until we actually finalize the insurance settlement. You know, once we get that completed, then we'll know where we stand as a municipality going forward with the construction of the new clubhouse. And obviously what that's gonna look like, because if we're in a position where we start construction this fall, theoretically, if we're fortunate enough to be there, that means it becomes a construction site and the public isn't able to access that site. We'd have to look at alternative arrangements to put the public for the skiing season. So I would say, certainly recognize the Cross Country Ski Club, they wanna know where they stand. I can say we'll certainly work with them in the coming weeks to make a plan to make sure that we're operational. But I think it's just a bit premature, we're only into literally, week 2 of the settlement at this point in time.
Councillor Valens?
This might also be quite a premature question, but when we look at the new build for the golf club, will there be a committee? Will there be any public, what's the word I'm looking for?
Consultation.
Consultation, yes, thank you.
Yeah, there'll be a
for that.
public consultation, and really, what administration will bring to council once we know what that settlement looks like, is we'll bring the process forward for approval, and that will really depend on what that insurance claim looks like on the final settlement. Whether we go out for requests for proposals, whether we go straight to tender, whether there's work administratively we do initially. But certainly we would recommend that there'll be some form of public consultation to provide input. But also realizing that, we're not building a building that's gonna be $35 million, right? We have to work within the parameters of, somewhat of what the settlement is gonna look like. That's likely to be in a $700,000 range. And we'll likely have that to council in early October for review.
Okay, all good? Okay, thank you for that. Next item is a report on a schedule for council meetings. Got a motion here that council hereby accepts the attached report on regular council meetings, and that administration be directed to amend the procedural bylaw with changes discussed during the 24th of August meeting today, and further that procedural bylaw be brought back as first meeting. So I'm gonna give a motion and a second there to move it, and I'll get an update on that report. Councilor Debuchy, Councilor Lake, Mr. Torchinsky.
So, quick report. So with the onset of COVID-19, the pandemic has obviously changed the way in which regular meetings of council have been scheduled. Meetings have continued to be held every second and fourth Monday of each month, with the exception of July and August, when we only have one meeting, as per our procedural bylaw, virtually beginning at 12 p.m. Now, obviously, we're meeting physically as a council, but still virtually publicly. With September just weeks away, the municipality will be reverting back to the regular meeting schedule on the second and fourth Monday of each month. So 2 meetings per month, not just the one. Administration is looking for council's direction on 2 items. Does council wish to continue with the meeting time of 12 p.m., revert back to the traditional time of 7 p.m., or consider an alternative time? And number 2, does council wish to continue with meetings being held virtually for the public, or allow for physical public participation in council chambers? COVID-19 protocols would have to be developed and enacted for this option. And this report is presented for council's information and direction today.
Any questions, comments? Councilor Debuchy.
Not that public participation not that public participation was really high in council meetings. However, I mean, it is part of the, I guess, transparency that we should allow people to participate. But given that Shaw TV is not as reliable as it should be for broadcasting, is there a way we can update or guarantee that we get better access through either the Shaw Cable and or Facebook if we decide to close our meetings to the public?
Yeah, we are in the process. We actually get quite a good turnout on Facebook Live in general for these meetings at 12 noon. You know, and the numbers, you know, fluctuate depending on the size of the agenda, but certainly we've seen up to 100 viewers online. We are working with Shaw to upgrade some of our equipment required so that we do have that reliable service. So Shaw is committed, of course, to televising our council meetings going forward, but we do require some upgrades which have been challenged by COVID and just physically getting people to do work. So I would say that both those options will be available certainly in the September timeframe.
So before I go to you, Councilor, one comment. I was speaking to Mayor Davis in Terrace Bay, and with the Thunder Bay District Health Unit's mandate now, if there's a public person coming in other than staff, we all must wear masks now as well. So that makes it a little trickier as a council trying to speak to a microphone. We got it set up perfectly now with staff, so that's some consideration we have taken going forward. How does that look? With us, wearing a mask is not an issue, but if we're here for an hour and a half, and we're talking to a microphone, it becomes more of an issue than not. So that's a consideration when we change up the open to public scenario. Councilor Lake?
And certainly, you know, I think the portion that we're worried about is cold and flu season, about to be coming up and back to school. I would certainly love to see the public back in, but I think you need to get through that school opening, cold and flu season. I think you're looking to at least the new year till you start we need to see where we are in January before I think I would support having the public in. I do wonder, the one public place I think is still important, and I don't know how the protocols work, is around delegations. I do think for those kind of particular issue-focused ones, I don't know if Louise could film deputations or have some sort of virtual participation that way. But certainly the delegation, I think, has been a useful tool for council. But really, in terms of public being present, until we get into that new year and see what things look like, I certainly would be a little bit nervous about having folks in.
Good. So that's one point. So the second point was brought from administration is the time slots. Does council want to consider this and have a recommendation brought back for the September meeting, or make a decision today whether you like the lunch time or go back to a 7 or an alternative time, 5, 4, 6 on those every second Mondays? Councilor Lake?
So certainly in the summer, noon works great for me. I wouldn't be able to attend noon meetings when school's in. It's our lunch period is 11:25 to 12:25. So if we were going to go 11:25 or 11:30, I could probably make most of them. But certainly, doesn't need to be 7, but outside of the workday certainly helps.
Okay. Councilor Valens, your preference?
I'm open to any time slot, so
Okay.
I'm flexible.
Councilor Debussy?
I think we have to consider that as counselors, this is a part-time job, and I think for those who are working, sorry guys, I think we should consider after hours or after work hours. I wouldn't want Councilor Lake to try and compress a council meeting, because we've been lucky that council meetings don't run long, but as you remember, Mayor Dumas, there is no guarantee of how long a council meeting will last. So I don't want to see us trying to compress an agenda or a full agenda into it. So I think moving it to the evenings, what time and during the evening? 7 worked for me when I was working, but since I'm now not working, I have no preference. But I think it's important that we have a proper amount of time set aside, if need be, to hold a proper meeting.
Okay, Councilor.
And certainly I would say this, we rarely go over an hour. We're very efficient through administration. If we wanted to keep 12 and see how that goes through September, October, November, I'm absolutely willing to say, why don't, if everybody likes 12, I mean, 11:30 obviously would be better for me, but my employer's pretty understanding, and if that works better for administration, I'd be willing to give it a shot, right? We don't know until we try it.
Councilor Valens?
Yeah, I'll firm up my decision and say I'm in agreement with Councillor Lake. If we want to do 12 o'clock until the new year and give that a try, then go from there.
As long as everybody's got the availability of getting here and without any interruptions, like you say, if you work with your employer and they're okay with that, like I'm okay, I think you're okay. Councillor DeBouchy's retired now. Councillor Gingras, we can find out, but I think that 12 is a good thing, but we always had 7 o'clock meetings, and we've had feedback from the public that it was too late, and with the shift change, they want to tune in or come. So 12 o'clock seems to be working for everybody. We have Facebook Live, we'll get the Shaw situation squared away, so that'll all work. I think in delegation format, if you need to have a delegation, we can all wear a mask for the time that individual is in here for that delegation, and we'd then ask them to leave after the delegation so that we wouldn't have to do the whole meeting with a mask. And I'm not just talking us, it means all staff that are here, everybody has to wear a mask under the mandate. Once we get past that, that's fine. So we don't have to refuse any delegation. We can all accept anybody coming in and just wear the mask for the time that that individual is delegating. So if everybody's good with 12, we continue to go forward with 12. If administration feels it's a comfortable time, we'll slot as well.
Well, certainly the
Sure.
administration will work
Yeah.
around council schedule.
Okay, absolutely. Councillor Bucci.
I think it's important before we make any decision right now, is we have one counselor who's absent, who is employed also, and we don't know the flexibility of that. So what I would suggest we do is I'm in 100% agreement until we go through the flu season, we close our meetings to the public. That much I can say we can approve or advise administration on. But until we get a word from our Councillor Gingras, I think we should hold off making a decision on the time portion.
So, Your Worship, if I could make a suggestion, seeing as we're discussing this topic now, and I don't believe this needs to come back to a council meeting. We can certainly just do it through email, and we'll be transparent right now about the discussion. If we could set 2 time options that we can propose. So if we're saying, we'll touch base with Councillor Gingras and look at noon, what's the second time slot council would like if noon didn't work for that individual councillor? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it, just so there's 2 options that we can finalize going forward, because I'd like to get that done this week, because we're gonna have to publicly advertise for our September council meetings.
Okay, Councillor Lake, I'll let you go first and see what other slot time you would like.
7 o'clock's been traditional.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Councillor Valens?
Sure, 7. Let's make it easy. 7.
Councillor Bucci?
I think the other thing you can do, if we're gonna poll councillors anyways, is what time are people off work? I mean, if people are off work or whatever, because if you have young children, I remember those trying to get them to hockey. If 3:30, 4 o'clock works, I think that's something that would work for, other people also. But I don't know what people's schedules are. I don't know how flexible other employees or employers, are. So I think, instead of giving you a time, is it possible for you to poll people as opposed to, because I don't know what time school is officially out, right? I don't know what time the office closes, but, and then you can poll us, or we can come back, or you can recommend that it's gonna be 4:30 or 7.
Your Worship, I might suggest we look at the 4 o'clock as a secondary time, specifically for one reason. If we run into technological problems, it's during the workday. We have people we can reach out to get it fixed for that meeting. 7 o'clock at night, when we run into issues, it's very difficult to get the technology back for the public.
Okay.
Just a thought.
So I was gonna recommend the 4 o'clock thing as well. And if it's a little bit tight, maybe 4:30, whatever, but I mean, everybody's timelines has to be addressed, and we're gonna make sure it's comfortable for all councillors. So,
Yeah, I'll have to check my schedule, so.
okay. Okay, so we'll go with lunch or 4, and then going forward, we'll see what Councillor Gingras says, but I think that's good. And I think with the technology between Facebook and Shaw Cable and any delegations, we're trying to catch all of our community to make sure that they're fully tuned in with council's updates. Okay, that being said, I won't put anything in this actual motion because there's no space for that. It's just a matter of changing it up, and the report will come back for the next meeting to approve on the time slots. So all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, up next we have report on sustainable financial plan, water wastewater systems. Mr. Verbo, please.
The municipal drinking licensing program is an approval framework established by the Ministry of Environment. In accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act and Ontario Regulation 453-07, there are 5 key requirements: a drinking water works permit, a permit to take water, operational plan of the system based on the Drinking Water Quality Management Standard, an accredited operating authority, and the financial plan. The Town of Marathon and Northern Waterworks have prepared the first 4 items. A financial plan, approved by council, must be submitted to the province by November 2020. The financial plan must demonstrate the financial viability and sustainability of the town's drinking water system. The plan must be for a period of at least 6 years. Since both systems are integrated, the Town of Marathon's financial plan encompasses water and wastewater. The last financial plan was prepared 5 years ago in 2015. It detailed the amounts for the periods of 2013 to 2021. Schedule A details the changes from that plan with the actual amounts from 2013 to 2019 and the 2020 budget with a 2% increase for the remaining 2 years. Reserve funds set aside for water and wastewater projects is $33,812 less than originally planned, or $3,107,000 versus $3,141,000, or 1.1%. The changes our revenue is $768,000 higher because of service surcharge was increased in 2016 and 2017, but no increase have occurred since. And there was government funding provided by the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. Originally, water rates were forecasted to be increased 2% annually, but this was not implemented. Operating costs have increased by $79,000 for wastewater and $159,000 for water. More work has been focused on maintaining the system, but on a positive note, the cost of our third-party operator, Northern Waterworks, was reduced in the renewal contract effective 2020. Capital requirements are also higher by $583,000, primarily to take advantage of government grants for wastewater. Administration has prepared a financial plan to the year 2026. It is detailed on Schedule B. The assumptions are water and sewer rates will not increase, operating costs will increase 2% annually. There are no major projects, which are defined as costing over $500,000, anticipated in the next 6 years. There is no government funding assumed for the next 6 years. By 2026, the reserve fund is estimated to be $3,462,000. We are not aware of any water or wastewater infrastructure in a critical state. With monitoring and basic maintenance, major capital work on these systems may be deferred past 2026. With a significant reserve fund and possible government funding, the town can seize the opportunity to do major infrastructure work, but at this time it is recommended that this not be included in a financial plan due to the uncertainty. One project that has been identified as desirable is the construction of an influent building to house a bar screener at the sewage treatment plant. By improving the water and wastewater systems financial plan for 2020 to 2026, Council is committing to the financial viability of the systems. The options are to accept the plan as presented or accept it with amendments. Administration recommends that option A be selected and that the water and wastewater systems financial plan be accepted as presented.
Okay, I have a motion here that council hereby accept the attached report and recommendation of Sustainable Financial Plan Water and Wastewater Systems, and further that the Water and Wastewater Systems Financial Plan be accepted as presented today. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valens. Questions, Mr. Verbo? Councilor Debuchy.
You're projecting an annual deficit at the end of this term at about roughly $75,000 annually moving forward. And that is because you're not expecting any increase for the
Microphone, sir.
You're projecting at the end of the year 2026 annual deficits of $75,000 per year, and that's because you're not planning any increases, yet your costs are based on 2%. If and when Hydro releases the rates that we're under now, their original projection was an 8% increase moving forward. annually, so should,
Which schedule are you
oh,
referring
I'm
to?
sorry, the final one on, index, Schedule B1,
Okay,
the annual surplus shortfall,
yeah,
you're projecting, $72,000 by the end of the term
for that year.
for that year. But but you see how we've gone from a surplus to a deficit,
Correct.
moving forward. And you're not projecting any increase from now till the 2026 period?
Correct. So that's just the assumption that we've made.
Okay.
If we figure that the reserves will be reduced, perhaps we'll have to start increasing rates, but at this time, we're not. Again, because there's lots of uncertainty, but then also, if you see on, it all depends too on the amount of capital. This is just an estimate. And we haven't been spending that much money so far, just because these are safe estimates. And so to increase it right now at a $3 million reserve is not recommended.
No, but if tomorrow you had to spend $1.5 million, council would be looking at an increase in 2021 for water and sewer.
Correct.
So you feel comfortable right up to 26, but if the need be, you can raise money real quickly.
And we've just taken an amount of 2%.
Mr. Skirchinski?
Your worship, I think the way for council, the simple way to look at it is, this is a plan, right, that we're required to have. But obviously, water and wastewater are reviewed every year as part of our budgetary process. So that's ultimately where we get into the detail of, do we need to look at increases or not? So think of it on a yearly basis. This is just a projection.
Yep. All good? Good. Thank you for the report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Up next, we have a report on the 2020 tax ratios. Mr. Verbo.
So this is an annual report that's brought forward, and there has been no change for the past years. So Section 308, subsection 4 of the Municipal Act requires single-tiered municipality to pass a bylaw each year to establish the tax ratios for the taxation year. Section 313 prescribes tax reductions for vacant and excess lands in the commercial and industrial tax classes. Tax ratios establish the relative tax burden for each property class. Council has the authority to adopt alternative ratios as long as they fall within the provincial range of fairness, which is multi-residential 1.0 to 1.1, all other classes 0.6 to 1.1. Since our ratios fall outside the range of fairness, we can only move closer to these ranges. The province has provided another option in utilizing revenue-neutral transition ratios to mitigate tax shifts amongst the classes because of reassessment. To be revenue neutral in the large industrial class, the ratio would have to be 2.755, but the legislation has limited the tax ratio for industrial to 2.63. Commercial tax classes would have to incur most of the tax shift. As stated, administration is proposing no changes to the tax ratio. The ratios are presented. Another consideration is the effect of the tax ratio on future economic development. Any potential business looking at investing in the town of Marathon will be analyzing the municipal property tax environment. A high tax ratio could be viewed as a negative aspect. To illustrate the effect of tax ratio, assume a house and a business are both assessed at $100,000. If the tax ratio for the residential class is 3%, the homeowner would pay $3,000 in municipal property tax. The business owner would pay $3,750. With the overhaul of the property assessment in 1998, the province recognized that not all properties classified in the commercial and industrial property classes were being occupied to the same extent, so it codified two subclasses. Vacant land is property that is no accessible build improvements, such as buildings. Excess land is property that has not been improved and is in excess of the amount of land required to support the improved portions of the land. The Ministry of Finance prescribes tax rate reductions percentages of 30% for commercial and 35% for industrial properties. In 2017, the province granted flexibility to municipalities to alter the reduction program by altering the discount outside of the 30 and 35% range, or even eliminate them. The reduction for vacant commercial properties was eliminated as the town of Marathon has the optional tax class of parking lots / vacant, but excess commercial property still receives a 30% discount, and vacant and excess industrial properties were given a 35% reduction. Changing tax ratios do not generate more tax revenue, it shifts the tax burden amongst the classes. Increasing the tax ratios will expose revenue to a higher risk of tax write-offs. So the options are to adopt bylaw 1986 and approve the ratios as presented, or adopt the bylaw with amendments. Administration is recommending that option A be selected, establishing the ratios as detailed in bylaw 1986.
Thank you for that report. Do I have a motion that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation of 2020 tax ratios and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted later this afternoon and ratios presented? Moved by Council Lake, second by Council Bushi. Any questions, Mr. Verbo, on all those lovely ratios? Council Lake.
I mean, I think when I first came onto council, I'm gonna say that the rate for large industrial was around 5 or 6%.
5.6, yeah.
It was huge, right, and a huge generator for the municipality. We obviously dropped that as the mill required. The deal is, though, you can't bring those ratios back up, right, because we're outside the range of fairness. You essentially are, you can go lower, but you can't go higher. Is that correct?
You can go up by using the revenue neutral, but again, the province has put a cap on it, and we're using that at 2.63.
Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Up next, we report on the 2020 final levy of taxation, Mr. Verbo.
So on May 25th, the 2020 budget was approved with bylaw 1981. Just today, the tax ratios for 2020 were hopefully passed with bylaw 1986. Bylaw is required specifying the tax rates by property class. The rates are attached in Schedule A. So you can approve the final tax levies as presented, or approve the 2020 final levy of taxes with amendment. Administration recommends that option A be approved and that bylaw 1987 adopting the 2020 final levy of taxes be approved as presented.
Good, I have a report here that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation of the 2020 final levy of taxes and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted later on this afternoon for the final tax levy as presented. Moved by Councilor Val, second by Councilor Leitch. Any questions on that? Hearing none, call a question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. I have a motion here for the following check runs to be approved for payment. Accounts payable for the amount of $556,255.89 and payroll in the amount of $162,539.69. Moved by Councilor Val, second by Councilor Lake. Any questions of those accounts payable or payroll? Hearing none, call question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Bylaw number 1986 being a bylaw to set tax ratios, confirm property classes, and set tax ratios and reductions as prescribed under property subclasses for the town of Marathon for the 2020 taxation year to be read the first, second time this 24th day of August 2020. Moved by Councilor DeBush, second by Councilor Valance. Any questions? Hearing none, call question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Bylaw number 1987 being a bylaw to adopt the final levy of taxes for the year of 2020 for the collection of said taxes to be read the first and second time this 24th day of August 2020. Moved by Councilor Blake, second by Councilor Valance. Any questions of that motion? Hearing none, call question. favor? Carried, thank you. And of course, bylaws number 1986 and 1987 be read a third time and finally passed the 24th day of August 2020. Moved by Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Valance. Any questions of that third reading? Hearing none. Call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And of course, there's no in-camera meeting today, so we will adjourn this meeting at the hour of, oh, sorry.
You got a new business item?
Oh, right, sorry, yeah. Sorry, under new business, information received from Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding Bill 197, guidance materials, electronic meetings. Mr. Skrzyncki, sorry about that.
So, under Bill 197, we already utilized the provisions for electronic meetings, which we instituted under the pandemic situation and have captured in our procedural bylaw. One other availability to council under this new bill is the ability for proxy voting. And really what I'm looking for from council today is direction on whether this is something that council wishes to entertain. If it is, then administration will have to bring a report back to council. If it isn't, then we just completely take it off the table. So, administratively, I can't say I'm a fan of proxy voting, but Bill 197 does give that ability to council under certain provisions contained within 197. I'll just highlight a couple of them so council is aware. So the limitations would be proxy holders must be members of the same council. So theoretically, a member of council could give their vote to another member of council to make on their behalf if they were not available for the meeting. A member could not be proxy holder for more than one other member at the same time. So Councillor Valance couldn't hold proxies for Councillor Lake and Councillor Tabucci. Appointed proxy is not counted towards quorum. So if quorum is not established, there is no meeting. The member appointing a proxy shall notify the clerk of the appointment. And during recorded votes, the clerk shall record name and vote of every proxy holder, and name of member proxy holder is acting for. Council member absence rules still apply. A member's seat would become vacant if absent from meetings for 3 successive months without approval by council resolution. So really what administration is looking for today is something council wishes to consider via a report or not.
So we'll just simply go for one straight up answer, yes or no. Councillor Lake.
I'm not looking to make any work for administration. I was trying to get my head around this one. It would be if you contracted COVID, you're not allowed into the building.
It's not COVID applicable. It's absent applicable.
Then I don't see a point in doing it at all.
Councillor Valance.
I'm gonna vote yes.
You want people to
If they're gonna give us the option to be able to do something, we might as well take it, yes.
Councillor Debuchy.
I'm just gonna say, I think this is one that we need to study. I think it is something there is some value to it, and I kinda agree with, that we should explore. We shouldn't rule it out just as now. I think it's something that maybe you should come and report back to administration or from administration, because I think it does have some ability. If somebody's bedridden, if somebody's like that, I think there are some issues that, if you're still capable of going but not capable of attending. It'd be different if we were holding electronic meetings on a regular basis, but it's not, right? So,
Sure.
I think it's a benefit, like you said, Councillor Tabucci, and adds value. If we are looking at maybe afternoon meetings and someone can't make it due to work restrictions and stuff, it kind of gives us an option to still be able to carry on with our meetings.
So I say no, because I don't agree with proxy voting. I think you either come in person or you don't come at all. In voting it by proxy, it gives you that kind of sitting on the fence scenario. It's a touch issue. I don't want, so I personally say no. So with that being said, looks like there's a tie vote, that means it's defeated. So there's no need for discussion and going forward with a proxy vote, information brought forward to council. Okay? Good?
That is correct.
That's the question, whether or not we wanted administration to investigate and bring a report back on proxy voting. Period.
That is the question.
That's the question.
Does council want a report?
That's
That's
right.
correct.
So, good, thank you for that. Now we will adjourn at the hour of 12:49. What was it? No, 12:52, sorry. Moved by Councillor Valance, second by Councillor Lake. Thank you very much and have a good day.